I started. You should know that I never really wanted to start a company. I sometimes say I'm an accidental entrepreneur, and I had two venture capitalists who approached me and tried to convince me I ought to start a company, that they ought to be, and convinced me that I ought to accept their money, which is a good way of starting a business. I recommend it highly. It's sort of like being hard to get. You know, just pretend you're not interested, and they try harder. But there was a lot of truth to it. And I should tell you, at that time, I really wanted to build this small product. But I didn't really want to start a company. My observation is that people who started companies had miserable lives. They worked really hard. Most of them end up divorced. And many of them failed and really depressed. It just didn't look like an attractive thing to do. And so I was reluctant. And I got people to commit that they would work with me on it, and that I wouldn't be alone, and they'd really help. And so that's how Palm got started, really. I told honestly, I was approached by people who said, we like you, we think you have good ideas, we think you ought to be able to starting a business to do this. And I thought about it for a while. I said, okay. But I committed not to ruin my life by doing it. Now, we started Palm as a software company because that's what I was told what we're supposed to do. Because in 1992, building hardware was like really a stupid idea. At least that's what people said. Software was where it was at. The internet hadn't really come about yet, so no one was really crazy about that yet. And so we started Palm as a software company. We nearly went out of business. Palm Computing did. Our first products were done as a consortium with Casio and Tandy. It was a disaster. The Newton came out. It was a disaster. It was really hard. And we were basically, Palm was going to go out of business. We had about 25 employees. We had $3 million left in the bank. We had really no revenue stream. And one of our investors said to me, he said, well, and we were complaining. He said, look, no one wants to invest in this PDA space and do handheld computers anymore. And he says, well, stop complaining. He says, do you know what to do? And I said, sure. I didn't know what to do, but I said so. And he says, well, go do it. And I said, well, that means I have to do the hardware, the software, and build everything. He says, fine. What else are you going to do? I said, oh, great. I have 25 people and $3 million. So we went and did that, and that's how we created the Palm Pilot. It's not that simple. There's a lot to that. But pretty much that's the synopsis. And then that product, it was really interesting. Just as we were on the verge of success, really great success, that is when people decided we were the most worthless we would ever be. And no one wanted to do anything with us whatsoever. No one wanted to invest in the company, even small amounts. No one wanted to talk to us. They didn't want to be vendors. It was like, and we were sitting there saying, we think we have this really clever product. Luckily, we found a company in Chicago who had never heard of the PDA. This is US Robotics. We think they just didn't notice what was going on out here and all these companies that failed. And so they actually were interested in putting some money into us, and then they eventually acquired Palm. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, why we agreed to do that. But it was the right thing to do. And so we brought the Palm Pilot to market as a division of US Robotics. US Robotics was acquired by 3Com. 3Com didn't even care about Palm, but that was the only thing they got out of that acquisition. They spent $8 billion for US Robotics, which turned out to be worth about zero. And Palm was worth about, after a few years, worth quite a bit.